Hey guys, this video is an overview of how I built this custom water fountain. I'm not a professional by any means, but I will try to elaborate on the process. At this point, I'm just marking out the location of the fountain. This is going to be where the main water storage container will be. So just removing the turf and removing dirt. The hole's going to be about 2 feet deep, 1.5 to 2 feet deep. I'm using the 27-gallon storage bin that you find at your local hardware store like Home Depot. This one came from Home Depot. It's the HDX brand. Here my son wants to come and play in the dirt. Now I'm cutting the concrete forms to the specified height that I need. And here I'm using this reclaimed wood that I got from an old bed frame that I didn't want to discard. It was perfect for this application as the main frame for the fountain. So I'm just sanding off the old stain off of it. And now I'm using the wood putty to fill in the holes from the bed frame hardware, like the screws that were in the wood, to prevent water and bugs from getting into it and damaging the wood. And here I'm screwing some screws into the bottom of the wood to be used as an anchor, because this portion of the wood is going to be placed inside the concrete and I want it to be sturdy within the concrete. So the concrete will be drying around the screws. And I'm just using primer to paint the bottom of the wood as they will be placed in the concrete. Helps to prevent moisture from setting in and bugs from getting in. Here I'm just measuring the width of the fountain. I'm marking out where the concrete forms are going to go. They're going to be the main support for the fountain and the frame of the fountain. Here I'm just making sure that the dirt is level. This is the finished product. And now I'm going to be applying the upper portion of the frame. The top portion, and I'm using a redwood here. Just pre-drilling and securing it onto the main board. Now I'm measuring the width once more, because this fountain will have a glass backdrop. and it needs to fit snugly in between those two side pieces. You can disregard that slanted line that I have on the inside there. I was more focused on the outside line because that's where I was making that cut. Here I'm doing a final cut, and then we're going to be securing this piece of the wood onto the top portion of the frame. Now I'm just measuring the width of the glass, and it fits as expected. And I'm going to be cutting this aluminum C-channel to my specification. The C-channel is about a half an inch or 7.75 inches. The glass is going to slide inside of it, and it's going to be secured by these aluminum C-channel pieces on each side of the frame. I'm also going to be putting a rubber foam liner inside of the C-channels to help prevent the glass from scratching, and also it helps it to fit more snugly. So here I'm putting the foam in, and then we slide the glass into the aluminum C-channels. Just making some final measurements. I'm going to be applying these two rectangular pieces of board underneath the glass to secure it so that it's partially floating on the frame. I didn't want the glass to be sitting on the floor. And then here we're going to be securing both sides of the frame so that it doesn't move while we move the glass to its final resting place. So here the fountain is seated and it's level on all sides. And I'm going to go ahead and start mixing the concrete. This concrete is going to go inside the concrete forms that we were preparing earlier. To secure those main beams of the fountain. So now I'm just applying the concrete. I'm using these pieces of wood to level off the concrete and remove any air bubbles that might be residing inside of it. Now we're just cleaning up the tools. At this point I'm drilling holes on top of the storage bin, which will be used as the main water storage location. The holes allow for the water to be reclaimed and recycled through the system over and over again, as you'll see shortly. So here I'm just boring a hole into the container so that I can slide this 10-foot by 1-inch diameter vinyl hose through it. I'm securing it with some clamps. Here I'm just cutting the PVC to the specification that I need. You can see that one end of the PVC is capped off. And I'm going to be using this corrugated plastic sheet. It's a 2mm width rectangles, I'm going to be using an angle grinder to cut a path into the PVC pipe so that I can insert this corrugated plastic. This will be used as a water spillway, a cheap but effective water spillway. And here I'm going to apply silicone on the outside of the corrugated plastic to make it watertight, so there's no leaks. So here we are, that's how it looks. Now I'm going to apply it and test it, and this is how this portion of it works at this point. I wanted to make sure the angle of the spillway is allowing the water to flow down along the glass. I didn't want it to just free fall onto the ground. I wanted it to flow like a river. And now I'm going to be adding some holes into this PVC because I wanted a second effect of raindrops to be falling. These are going to be falling straight down to the ground. And I'm using these rain drop nozzles. These nozzles are from Glencoe Fittings, part number 011307. You can find it on their website at Glencoe Fittings. I had a hard time finding anything like that at a hardware store. Here I'm just inserting the raindrop nozzles. And these are some measurements of the fountain and the straps that I use for the hose. And at this point, I have some remaining redwood for the rest of the frame. I'm just using the wood putty to fill in any nicks and knots that might be in the wood or any damage that occurred at the store. And once it dries, I'll sand it and it'll be one smooth piece of material. And now I'm starting to use the PVC cement and just finalize all the connections, make sure they're watertight and secured. I'm just installing the remainder of the clamps that I need for the PVC piping. And we're going to be testing the fountain again, and this is how it sounds at this point. The water is flowing up the vinyl hose and through this custom spillway that I made. And now I'm going to be removing the lid of the storage bin. And you can see the pump there on the left side. It's a Hygger 1060 gallons per hour variable speed 24 volt water pump, which I got from Amazon. And now we're just trying to finalize and get measurements for the rest of the frame that's going to be covering the glass. I'm also going to be installing some LED lights around the perimeter of the frame. At this point, I'm just aligning the pond liner. This will basically be used as a tool to recollect all the water that's falling make sure the water is being reclaimed into the storage bin. I did make a little bit of a mistake here. I cut the liner too close to the bin, so when the water is falling, it's falling outside of the pond liner, and I lose some of it due to evaporation. So it's best to run the fountain and see how far the water splashes, and then cut your pond liner at that point to reduce water evaporation. So I just finished staining the wood. That's another mistake that I made. The way that it was stained, you're supposed to apply wood conditioner first and then go ahead and stain the wood. It comes out much better, and that's something I'll show in another video when I built my planters that are next to the fountain. The staining on that came out pretty good. Here I'm applying the LED lights. I've actually had to change these LED lights about 3 times already. Initially I was using the standard ones you find on Amazon that are rated for outdoor, but eventually these would fail. I ended up getting one from this company called American Lighting. My wife actually bought it from Costco, and I saw that it was water resistant, and I actually started using it, and it works great, and it has a lot of features. That's not what's in the video at this point. You'll see that in the end of the video. It's an American Lighting Neon Flex 16.4 feet LED light strip. It's also available on Amazon. And it does seem to be more rated for water than the standard LEDs that you find on Amazon. So here I'm making the final measurements and additions to the frame. And also to note, if you're planning to do projects in your backyard, it's good to consider all the conditions of the yard, because I had to actually dig a trench throughout my yard and send electrical PVC down the center of my yard so that I can eventually have an electrician give me power on this side of the yard where my fountain is, so that I don't have to use an extension cord all the time. And I'll show that in the video as well. These are the original LED lights at night in the fountain. So I had to run a trench along this arrow before we put concrete down. And this was used to run electrical wire, which eventually became an outlet that I can now plug the fountain into. So this was in August of 2020 when I finished building it. And now we're in 2022, and this is how it is at this point. And if you're liking the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And please leave a comment and let me know what you think of this project and any changes that I maybe should have made. And these are the new LED lights in the fountain, the American Lighting. It has a lot of features, and it's been lasting a good amount of time. Thanks everyone for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.